Hi, dreamers. I'm Percival,
And I'm Vivian.
and we are your hosts of the Dreamscape Chronicles.
If you would like to share a story for us to tell or come on the show and share it yourself, we welcome all dreamers to contact us at dreamscapechronicles@outlook.com. It was the night before my big presentation, and I couldn't shake the anxiety crawling up my spine. I tossed and turned, my mind racing through notes I had memorized 1,000 times, as though rehearsing my speech would somehow calm me. But it didn't. The room felt heavy, as if the air itself was thicker than usual. It was late, well past midnight, and the house was still, save for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. As I laid there, struggling to find sleep, a sudden sense of unease washed over me. It started as a whisper, a cold draft skimming the edge of my blanket. I froze. There in the shadows near the far corner of my bedroom, I saw him. He stood motionless, an almost indistinguishable silhouette, tall and imposing. His broad shoulders were wrapped in the folds of a dark coat that seemed to swallow the dim light of the room. The only part of him that stood out were his eyes, piercing, glowing red orbs that shimmered like dying embers. My breath caught in my throat. Am I dreaming? I wondered, but the stillness felt too real. He didn't move, he didn't make a sound, he just watched. His presence was like a weight pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I tried to move, to call out, to break free from the paralysis that had frozen my body, but my limbs felt like they were encased in concrete. I could only watch in horror as his figure loomed closer, the room growing colder with each passing second. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. His eyes glowed brighter, now flickering like red lanterns in the dark. My mind screamed at me to look away, to close my eyes, to wake up from this nightmare. But I couldn't. The silence was suffocating. Time seemed to stretch, the minutes elongating into an eternity. I could feel the fear clawing at me, the panic rising in my chest, but still, he remained. He made no move to hurt me, just a silent observer lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, I felt a strange sensation, a tug at my consciousness, like something was pulling me back into my mind. It intensified until, with a final pulse of fear, I jolted awake. My eyes shot open. The room was exactly as it had been when I drifted off, dim and still, except for the faint hum of the streetlight outside my window. My heart raced, but I was alone. There was no figure in the corner. But the feeling, the weight, the unease lingered. Was it a dream? A trick of my mind, conjured by stress and lack of sleep? Or was something truly watching me from the shadows? As I laid there trying to steady my breath, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still there, just beyond the edge of my vision, waiting. And for the rest of the night, I kept my eyes open, staring at the corner of the room, waiting for the return of the Hat Man.
So you may ask, who is the Hat Man? But let's be honest, we really want to know, what is the Hat Man? At its vaguest, a dark entity. But if we remove that superficial ideology, a far more sinister theory emerges. This dark entity has been known to often visit us in the night, just watching, waiting. But for what? Is it an omen? A messenger? Perhaps a trickster from beyond the mundane world of man? Could it be a recruiter of creative talents? Some whisper it's a formless shape-shifting predator, an interdimensional parasite from beyond that slips between the realms. Others insist he's demonic, or even the devil himself, cloaked in shadow. Perhaps the most unsettling theory could be far simpler than we think. The Hat Man isn't a being at all. Could it be a mere projection? An astral traveler, an unknown soul that left its body, untethered and anonymous, watching from the dark places of our homes. Here we are at episode 11.
Yup.
I think it's pretty obvious what we're going to be talking about.
Yes. Killer clowns from outer space. Oh, no, that's another episode, perhaps. Actually, it's not far off from this episode, though, series-wise. I'm just saying. I mean, we won't get too far into it yet, but we can dip our toe into it later.
Killer clowns from space and the Hat Man.
And the Hat Man. We're writing our own horror movie.
Yeah, that's a pretty horrific one.
So the Hat Man, I almost forgot what it was.
You'll wait till later and he shows up.
Oops.
No, so what do you know about the Hat Man?
Okay, so let's see. His appearance, he's kind of like a silhouette of a guy, but he's usually very tall, somewhere between like 6 and 10 feet. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's
That's a very tall
common.
person. Just, as a general comment, I've never seen anyone more than about 6.5 feet tall. I've seen some pretty tall people, but 10 feet seems extreme.
I think it's a looming over you type presence. Like, I think it's leaning over a lot of the time, people say. Like, it's so
Yeah.
tall, it's
Looming.
Yeah, just, and it's a shadow figure, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
So, I mean, if it could probably appear larger, and then, that creepy thing in cartoons where the shadow's giant on the wall.
Yes.
I think
It's like crawling up the
that's
seam.
the kind of effect I get from it.
It's eeriness. Well, not only the silhouette is like commonly known, but also his hat, obviously. It's what we know him as is the Hat Man, but he has a very wide-brimmed hat usually. But it's interesting, some people see it as like a fedora type styled hat, and then some see it as more of like a sun hat, like a filled hat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But always a wide-brimmed hat. And then on top of that, they usually don't see any features other than like red eyes.
Red eyes. I've heard red, I've heard yellow.
I don't know. Some people say he's got like a trench coat. Some people see him like with some sort of pocket watch, like a golden pocket watch type deal. We can talk about that later. Yeah, he's usually described as like this quiet silhouette, hatted, red-eyed man in the corner, quietly watching and being incredibly creepy.
Since you just said something about that pocket watch, the other episode we did where the woman pulled out her pocket watch from her clutch.
Oh, you mean the story?
Because I had never heard anyone say that he had a golden pocket watch before.
And actually after hearing that story and reading it obviously and hearing it a couple times, it makes me wonder if the time beast or creature or entity, whatever it is that was in the cave when they left the bar, I wonder if that was ever even a true thing. I wonder if it wasn't just the crossroads demon or whatever that woman was representing. I wonder if that wasn't just a trick she was pulling on him.
Like the whole thing was a setup?
Yeah.
I believe that.
You know what I mean? Okay. But anyway, if you haven't heard that story, go back and look at that episode. It's provocative. It was an interesting story for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Yes, it did remind me of the golden pocket watch in that story for sure.
The crossroad demon thing too. And that was something else we were talking about, that your dreams could be crossroads.
Yeah.
Some people have said that they see the Hat Man in their dreams as well. Not just during sleep paralysis. So I've been listening to a lot of Dar Mason stuff lately, the Spirit Box, and he references the Dark Man. I can't help but think these are two distinct, different entities.
You mean like the Dark Man and the Hat Man? They're completely separate. Oh,
right.
Okay.
I think they appear very similar.
Okay.
From what I can tell, but they're very different. I wonder also if the Hat Man is another type of scout. Like he's just watching.
Like a talent scout, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's either that or it's purely just appearing to people hoping that somebody sees it. And then if somebody sees it, it's like, okay, you took the bait. Now you're afraid. And it can milk you for fear as long as you're afraid
Mm.
of it, kind of thing.
So you're saying that that is, the essence of the Hat Man, or is that something that the Hat Man and the Dark Man share?
Well, they both invoke fear, but I think maybe this is just more the Hat Man because the Dark Man has a deeper agenda. But I don't want to get off topic too much.
Ah,
Yeah, I know.
okay.
It deserves its own episode because it needs a lot more attention to the Dark Man. He is a very specific entity. It's going to take a lot more than mixing him with Hat Man because although they can appear as shadows, they don't always appear as
Mm.
shadows. And the Dark Man himself is more involved with the people that he comes in contact with.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the Hat Man is just a watcher.
Yeah,
So I feel like, like you said, he's like the talent scout,
sure.
but maybe the Dark Man is the one who is the follow up. And if you can't see him, then they're probably just dip out. But if they can sense that you can see them, I think they can detect your fear. They can feed off of it. The, energy vampire, if you will.
This is where my idiotic brain is going, but it seems very similar to like Frodo when he throws the ring on and then the ring wraiths can see him, but only because he's like opening himself up to the ring's power. Like he has the ability to hide and be in this other like pocket universe in a way.
Yeah, the ring, he becomes invisible, so he's
Yeah.
protected. But then also the double-edged sword as the spirits can see him.
Yes.
So it's like he goes into the veil and then things that are in the veil can see him.
Right.
So if things are on our plane of existence, right, in this
Mhm.
dimension and people can't see them, then they just go unnoticed. But the people who are sensitive to these things might see them, might see like the full apparition or projection of whatever it might be.
Mm.
But I feel like, the Hat Man is definitely to me either one of the two. Like I said, like he's either a scout looking for people who can sense him and potentially have creative abilities. Maybe it seems like creative people have this.
The capacity to see.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, the Dark Man is definitely an entity that you would end up having to make a pact with or something. Like it would want you to make a pact with it. Like
Okay.
it's the deal broker and the Hat Man is the scout.
Okay, so I see what you mean. Like the Hat Man is scouting for people who would be ideal for something like an entity such as the Dark Man, which would prey on those specific targets.
Right.
Okay.
And I think for my experience, I've never seen the Hat Man.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I've seen the Dark Man, honestly. I'm not sure. But the cloaked shadow figure that I see is almost like a mixture of them both.
Now you're talking about the cloaked one, right? Because we've talked
Yes.
about him in a couple of our episodes.
And he's always just watched.
Yeah.
Then he kind of followed me to the other places.
He did have a lot of the same mannerisms.
It seemed like he had more power. He was able to go from sleep paralysis to my dreams, which is more like the Dark Man. I don't know. I've been thinking about it since this is Hatman's been what in the last less than 20 years,
Like
maybe?
early
Maybe 20
2000s.
years at the most.
Yeah.
But like I've never seen the Hatman.
Hmm.
I've never even seen eyes glow on any of these shadow figures.
So we've talked about the theory of the Hat Man being a scout looking for prey. What are some other interesting theories or concepts of what he could be?
Okay, so another would be either going the manifestation route and it being a tulpa or an egregore.
Okay, so I
But
have heard that one.
with it being kind of the mass hysteria, it would be more towards the egregore.
Sure. So, on a basic level, for anyone who doesn't know already, a tulpa is a creature in a way that is created by your mind, a single person's mind. It's often described as like an imaginary friend, for instance. It's gained a lot of independent existence and sense of personality on its own. It's a concept that originated in, I think it was Buddhism and mysticism, and it's kind of adapted from a lot of occult and modern tradition as well.
Right, you're right. Yeah, it's a Tibetan Buddhist thought form, whereas the egregore is the mass manifestation.
Good example of an egregore would be like the gods. The more people believing in them gave them more power. So it was like a mass belief in something that made it tangible, made it real.
And I'm sure there's other entities that have been forgotten to time, but the egregore goes beyond. So this is kind of like the idea of creepy pasta, like the Slender Man.
Okay.
It was 100% made up, but people have been seeing this thing now. So it's either just pure made up nonsense, or people are actually experiencing some kind of manifestation made by the belief of enough people, right?
Right.
But from the things I've witnessed, I can't say that it's untrue at all. And that's the kind of the whole thing of manifestation is you're putting energy into a thought, and enough energy into anything, I guess, could.
Making it real.
It's the idea of the boogeyman, or like you said, imaginary friend. I think enough belief in anything gives it enough power to take control one way or another of reality.
Yeah. But the biggest difference between the egregore and the tulpa seems to be the tulpa preys on one person. One person sees that imaginary friend. You know, you have an imaginary friend at your tea party. No one else can see it except you. But with an egregore, it's like a mass hysterical hallucination.
Yeah, mass hallucination.
Mass hallucination. So that's the main difference between the two. And that's kind of what I think the Hat Man gets put in category wise.
I would say so.
So let's get into something on the outskirts of these theories. Let's think about the astral projection side. We mentioned it possibly being an astral traveler and kind of touched on the idea of maybe it's someone who's severed the tie with their physical body, or maybe
Right.
it's someone who's like popping in the night.
So, my personal opinion on this direction with the Hat Man is I would say it's probably not an astral traveler.
Okay.
I would say that maybe the shadow figures, the generic ones, the ones that look smaller, could be astral travel or almost a remote viewing type projection.
Okay.
And maybe certain people can pick up on it.
Hmm.
I don't think the Hat Man is.
Why not? Why don't you think it is?
Because he seems to have the same presence that the cloaked one has. And I don't feel that that is a natural being. Like that is something otherworldly. Not that that can't be an astral traveler. It just gives off more of a ominous vibe. It just doesn't seem like it's human at all.
Okay.
But they both have the ability to interfere with other dreams. So, like, the shadow figures don't invade my dreams.
Mm.
But these things are on a different level. Like, I think some people said that it could be some kind of spirit. I think there are spirits that we can see, like some people can see.
But you don't get that vibe from this one either.
I don't get it from this either. Like, none of these shadow figures are spirits. And whenever I say spirit, I mean like human soul trapped on earth spirit. Some of the small ones could be like the ones in the house in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
always in your peripheral, making noises. That gives off spirit vibes.
Mm-hmm.
They purely strike fear no matter what.
Yeah. It's their job. So it also sounds like a very similar Pixar movie plot that I love so much, where they have day jobs of scaring people for energy, and they pop through doorways in between, I don't know, universes? I'm not sure.
Yeah, like the last story that we talked about with the
Right.
woman.
Where they opened the bar door and instead of going out to the parking lot, they
Essentially opened a portal,
were
went to a cave.
transported to, yeah.
And that's another thing too, is to think of these caves and how often the caves pop up.
No, but it does remind me of like Monsters Incorporated, where they have like they run on an energy that is scream energy. So then there's these entities that run on like scare power, right? Essentially, if you want to boil it down to something that simple. And then on top of that, they even scout the children to see which ones are going to be best fit to scare in order to collect that power. So it's kind of very similar in that respect, that there's scouts
Um,
collecting that information. And then you have to toggle in between these two realms, essentially, these doorways that, when quote unquote powered, do open up to completely different locations. Very similar to the bar transition into the cave from the last story, or going from sleep to the dream world.
so like portals.
Yes, portals.
Portals, folks.
Let's talk about portals.
Maybe we should leave portals for another episode.
Maybe we should leave portals for another episode. But no, I just thought that that was interesting, that there's, in very nuanced ways, this theory behind the Hat Man and the theory behind the shadow figures. It's in a lot of our pop culture references.
It really is.
But anyway, we have a couple of stories to share regarding the Hat Man.
We have a few. I think maybe we'll go through a couple. You want to talk about them after each one, and
Yeah, we'll discuss, kind of break it down.
okay, let's do that.
I'm down.
I'll preface this by saying I don't know that it was the Hat Man, but recently I couldn't shake the memory of something that happened to me when I was just a little kid, too young to understand much, but old enough to know that what I saw terrified me to my core. It wasn't every night, but often enough that I began to dread falling asleep. I'd be tucked in, the room dark except the faint light from the street lamp filtering through the curtains. That's when I'd see him, a man, standing perfectly still, just outside my window, staring directly at me. There was something wrong about him, though. I don't know what exactly. There just was. The way he didn't seem to want anything. No breaking in, no stealing, no, hey kid, I'm just passing through. He didn't even acknowledge my presence and didn't care if I saw him. He simply stood there, motionless, with the same rigid posture, like a statue. Like he wasn't even alive in the way I understood people to be. But I could feel him watching me. I would freeze, my breath caught in my chest, eyes locked on him, terrified even to blink. I kept waiting for him to move, to come closer, but he never did. It was worse than anything. Like he was waiting for something, waiting for me to look away, waiting for me to fall asleep, waiting for some moment when I wasn't paying attention. But he never did anything. He just stood there, like time was suspended in the moment. The thing that made it even worse was his hat. The man wore a wide-brimmed hat, stiff, like a farmer's hat, but almost unnaturally rigid. The brim was straight, unyielding, almost too perfect, making it impossible to see his face. But that wasn't what chilled me to my bones. What was worse than that, the hat hid his face, as though he was deliberately concealing himself from me, as though the absence of his features was far more terrifying than if he had been grinning or sneering. His face was gone, swallowed by that dark brim. I don't remember when I first noticed him. He was just always there, every time I looked up. He was just standing outside my window. And every night I turned away, terrified. I would hide under the covers, pretending that if I couldn't see him, he couldn't see me. But I knew he was still there. I could feel him. I didn't dare tell anyone. The idea of him being a real person, a man just watching me from outside the window, haunted me. What kind of man would do something like that? Was it someone sick, a predator, a burglar? But the more I thought about it, I wondered if I had just imagined it all. A figment of a child's fear, nothing more than a dream I mistook for reality. Then years later, I was talking to a friend, still unsettled by the thought that maybe it had just been my mind playing tricks on me. She said almost casually, "Sounds like the Hat Man." I didn't know much about him, just that he was something people saw in the dark, something people whispered about, something that haunted you in the places where shadows were the thickest. So I decided to look him up, and when I did, I couldn't believe how similar my experience was. The posture, the dark silhouette, the hat. But the thing that really sent a shiver down my spine was the detail that kept coming up in the stories. The way the Hat Man never did anything, never touched anyone, never spoke, just watched. He was never a shadow, though. He was always a man. I could see his shape, his outline. Even in the dark, there was something about the way the figure stood so clearly human, but off like he shouldn't be there, like he was something that didn't belong in the world of the living. I'm not making any claims here. I don't know what I saw. Maybe I was just a kid and my imagination ran wild. Maybe it was a real person, a man who found a sick, twisted pleasure in standing outside a child's window at night. But that doesn't explain how years have passed and the memories of him still linger. They still send chills down my spine every time I'm alone in the dark. I don't think I've shaken the suspicion, and I'm not sure I ever will.
Very nice.
That's creepy.
Very creepy. I honestly, if it was me, I don't know that I would be able to shake the feeling of it actually being a real person. Like, was it always someone who wasn't there, or was it really somebody that was there?
With my experience with the shadow figures, I'm pretty certain that it is something there.
Yeah.
And the more and more that I've been looking into this, I'm certain there are multiple things that are out there.
I do find it interesting that, apart from his physical appearance, something that kind of calls out what the Hat Man is his demeanor, that he just doesn't do anything other than stand there and watch. Like, his non-participation in messing with you is part of who he is as a personality. That's how we identify him. That seems very interesting.
Right, and that's why I say he's so similar to the cloaked one that I see.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go with it, right?
I mean, if we're going with their shapeshifters, which, I mean, obviously they are, if they're shadows, they can appear in whatever form they feel like.
Well, I'll read the second story that we have. When I was a kid, I had a recurring nightmare, one that tormented me for years, around the ages of 7 or 8. Now I'm 27, but I can still remember it as if it happened last night. It usually started with my mom hosting one of her little get-togethers at the house, or sometimes work people would come over. I'd be in my room hearing laughter and chatter echoing down the halls, but then every time I'd hear the doorbell ring. Expecting it to be one of her friends, I'd get up and rush to answer it. But what I saw standing on the other side was never anyone I recognized. It was a man, tall, impossibly tall, his figure casting a long, unnatural shadow, even in the dim light of the porch. He wore a long trench coat that seemed to blend into the darkness around him, and atop his head was a top hat that swallowed the upper half of his face in darkness. I never saw any real features, no eyes, no mouth, just an empty void where his face should have been, like he wasn't even human. Without a word, he'd stretch out his hand toward me, slowly, deliberately, long fingers twisting in the air like they were reaching for something that wasn't even there. And before I could even process what was happening, I'd slam the door shut with all my strength. My heart was pounding, my chest ached with the raw panic. But when I turned to run, desperate to find my mom, that's when the nightmare twisted deeper. I'd scratch for her, beg her to come, but every time, without fail, she'd respond in that calm, detached voice. "I'm busy right now, honey. I can't come to the door." And I'd panic. I'd scream again, harder this time. But then, just out of the corner of my eye, I'd see my cat, my sweet, innocent cat, suddenly jerked out the front door as if something unseen was pulling it away. Sometimes it would even be with a long fishing pole, like some kind of grotesque game. As a kid, I thought it was just my imagination running wild, but now I'm not so sure. That's when it would happen. I'd turn, and before I could make a sound, I'd feel cold hands wrap around me, dragging me, no, sweeping me toward the door. I could never fight back. His coat would open like a dark maw, swallowing me whole into its folds. I'd be enveloped by him, his cold, suffocating presence pressing against me. The last thing I'd hear before waking up was the sound of my own screams, distorted and choked by whatever was suffocating me in the darkness. And then I'd wake up, gasping, my heart thundering in my chest. I'd run to my mom's room, trembling, unable to shake the feeling that I'd almost been taken. The worst part? This wasn't just a one-off. This dream came back every week, the same horrifying sequence. It never changed. The same man, the same door, the same dark figure. I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare, just a child's fear. But that feeling, that weight of being haunted, lingered long after I woke up. Years later, when I was 16, I thought maybe I had outgrown whatever strange connection I had to that terror. But that's when something happened that made me question everything. I was driving home one night with a friend from a party. It was late, past midnight, and we were heading down a quiet road back to my house. This was a new house, far from where I'd had the dreams, so I didn't expect anything strange. But then, out of nowhere, something made us both freeze. A man, standing in the middle of the road, lit by my headlights. He was tall, so tall, and his clothes were old-fashioned, almost like something you'd see in a black and white film. A dark suit, a top hat, and a cane in his hand, the metal of it catching the light in a way that made it shimmer unnaturally. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing us. We both stared, shocked into silence. I looked at my friend, and her face was pale, her eyes wide. She didn't believe in ghosts or spirits. She was the last person I thought would ever be scared of something like this, but she was shaking. I could see it. I was frozen too. The air felt thick, like something was pressing in from all sides. We had to drive past him to get home, but as we passed, I could feel my skin crawl, the hairs on the back of my neck standing straight up. Was it him? Was it the same figure from my nightmares, now somehow real? Or was it just a coincidence? I don't know. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever that thing was, it had been watching me, waiting for me to see it again. I've read about sleep paralysis and the effects of certain medications, but I wasn't on anything when these things happened. I wasn't half asleep. These encounters, whether in dreams or in real life, always felt too real, too vivid to be just imagination. Something that isn't just a shadow, but a presence that reaches into your soul. It's never stopped haunting me. I still feel like it's out there, waiting, watching. Isn't that crazy?
So this one is like one of those ones where it goes beyond just sleep. She's seeing this in the daytime, and this is actually pretty uncommon.
Yeah, very, very uncommon.
I have read a couple stories where people see some of these during the daytime, but most of the time these guys are nighttime paralysis predators.
And what's interesting about this story is it does kind of conflict with some of the things that we think we know about the Hat Man. For instance, he is not just preying on one person, such as a tulpa. In a way, he is becoming an egregore because he was in this person's dreams, in their nightmares, and that was where his appearance was recurring in the nightmares. But then, with her friend in the car on the way home that one night, her friend saw him. And he was very much real, very much in the present world. And it was a shared experience that they both had. So it's blasted past this imaginary friend zone, and we are officially in egregore territory.
Right, and I guess to me that's the only difference is how many people does it take for a tulpa to become an egregore?
Gosh.
They really could
Yeah.
be, it's essentially the same thing, but maybe the thing is where whenever you have enough belief, you have the ability to manifest to anyone outside of your believers,
Yeah. Your
right?
followers, sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it that way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I mean, power is power, and if you have the ability to do that, that's just like extra icing on the cake for these things.
Hmm. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I feel really bad for actually that person because that's a lot of terror.
This one seems a lot more physical and disruptive. Like, this one actually gave me more of like, I was thinking more of like Dark Man vibes
Yeah. Yeah,
a
because
little
he's a
bit
little bit more.
involved.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Um, but it was still, I don't know. This one's kind of on the edge for me. Like, I'm not sure if this is 100% the Hat Man.
I don't know. It seems very obvious, though, that, they encountered a shadow figure of some sort of entity that does seem to be messing with them.
The bottom line is this seems to happen after trauma,
Fair. Yeah.
and it could be any kind of trauma.
Do you think that is part of what the Hat Man as a scout is trying to pick up on?
I think he can sense the trauma.
Interesting. That's a very intriguing theory.
Because if you think about it, to me, it looks like a lot of these stories, not all, but most of them involve children pretty young.
Yeah.
So, as adults, we're told to, hold back our emotions and certain things like that. So we keep that energy bottled up within us.
Mm-hmm.
But as children, you have the ability to express your emotions unfiltered, right?
Without judgment, you mean?
Right.
I gotcha.
So it makes sense why these things are attracted to children because they have more creative minds, they're more emotional.
And they're less restricted.
Right. They're basically a beacon to these things of emotion.
Yeah.
So, you know, loss of family members, parents going through divorce, bullying,
Yeah.
school, essentially, physical, mental abuse, near death experiences, honestly, has been one too.
Or even something as simple as, being the outsider in school and not having a lot of friends.
Yeah,
Just being outcast in a way.
being the loner.
Not even bullied actively, but just left out,
Right.
which is so many people's story.
I think it really has the ability to be attracted to people under these conditions because it seems like it's a trigger.
Yeah.
I think I have my ideas why, but really we don't know why any of
What
these things do with it.
what are your ideas, if I can ask?
I just think that they're attracted to people who have abilities.
Specifically so they can feed off of that, or like why do you feel that way?
Maybe both that and the potential use of abilities. Like if they see you useful, they might try to recruit you.
Mm,
But otherwise, they use you as a source of food,
yeah.
if that makes
So
sense.
they can feed off of you, but if you happen to be useful down the road, they have you in their pocket.
Right. But I mean, is a common theme with a lot of these things is if they attempt to recruit you and you say no,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of disappear,
Interesting.
which is strange. Some people just rebuke them,
Okay.
they go away. Some people try and they don't.
Mm.
So, not sure what to think about that, honestly.
Maybe they're more motivated on some souls and less motivated on others.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think they're aware of people who are threats to them and they would rather recruit the threats than use them as food
Hmm. Okay.
or stop them altogether from using their abilities, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So we got one last story. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just past midnight when I woke up, the kind of wakefulness that felt too abrupt to be natural, like someone had nudged me awake with a sharp, unseen finger. My bedroom was dark. The only light spilling in was from the moon from behind the blinds. Thin beams of silver scattered across the floor. The air felt too heavy, almost suffocating. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then there was something more. A shadow, tall and solid, standing at the foot of my bed. It wasn't like any normal shadow. It didn't stretch, it didn't flicker or shift like the usual play of darkness and light. This was different. This shadow, it was alive, and it was watching me. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The figure was just an outline, so dark it seemed to swallow all the light around it, yet its form was unmistakable, tall, with the broad outline of a trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured its face. I couldn't see its eyes, but I felt them. The hat, the wide, menacing brim, seemed to swallow its features whole. I wanted to scream. I wanted to move, but my body felt frozen, trapped in place like my limbs were held down. I could barely breathe, as if the very air in the room had thickened with the presence of this thing, squashing out all my courage and any will to run. The figure didn't move at first. It just stood there, impossibly still, as if it were waiting for something. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could hear it now, loud, too loud, beating like a drum, desperate and frantic. But the figure didn't respond. It didn't need to. Time stretched in that moment, warping around the presence of the Hat Man. The shadows in the room seemed to bend with him, pooling in unnatural ways. I couldn't look away, couldn't even close my eyes. It was as if my mind had been riveted to that spot, as though acknowledging this thing in the dark meant something I wasn't prepared to face. And then, slowly, the figure began to move. The motion was unnatural, like it was gliding, or perhaps it was just my mind warping reality in a desperate attempt to understand. But as it moved closer, the weight of its presence grew heavier, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread that flooded over every inch of my body. It was as though the Hat Man didn't just occupy space in the room, he owned it. The air turned colder, and still I couldn't move. The Hat Man reached the side of my bed, his silhouette looming over me like an impenetrable wall. The room felt smaller, every inch consumed by that presence. Then, with a sound that was barely a whisper, a sound that could have been the scraping of a breath or the sigh of the darkness itself, the figure bent closer. I could feel the weight of it above me, that pressure, that thing that wasn't supposed to be there. I couldn't bring myself to scream. I couldn't even look away. I could feel his gaze, those invisible eyes boring into me with a force so intense, it was as if they were dragging me down into the blackness with him. For what felt like hours, we stayed like that, him watching, me unable to move, to fight, to do anything but lie there and wait. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, the figure straightened. Without a sound, it glided backward, merging back into the shadowed corners of the room, becoming part of the darkness once more. The air didn't return to normal immediately. It lingered, still thick, still cold. But somehow the weight lifted. The fear didn't disappear, but the presence of the Hat Man had gone. When I finally could move again, I shot out of bed, my heart still racing, my body trembling uncontrollably. I flipped on the lights, certain I would find some evidence, some sign of the thing I had just seen. But there was nothing. The room was empty, just as it had been when I first opened my eyes. Except for the lingering sense that I was not alone, that something had been there and might return.
And that's where the story ends. Or does it? You see, one strange thing about the Hat Man is that he doesn't always just show up once. For some, his visits are like a dark, reoccurring nightmare. You might think it's just a hallucination or your mind playing tricks on you. But it's not. Many people from all over the world report similar experiences. The Hat Man doesn't just linger in the shadows of a room. waiting for someone to look at him. He has a presence, something other, a malevolent energy that feels like it's been waiting, watching. Sometimes people say he stands at the foot of their bed, like he's been there for hours before they even wake up. Others claim they feel him behind them, always just out of view. But they can't look away, even when they try. What does he want? Why does he come? That, my friends, is the mystery. No one knows for sure. Some believe he's some kind of interdimensional being. Others say he's a manifestation of fear, a dark force that feeds on energy of its victims. There are even theories that he's an omen, a harbinger of something bad, though no one is for sure. And let's not forget, the Hat Man isn't just a one off, no. The stories keep pulling in all across the world from people who've never met each other but share similar eerie experiences. So I'm left with this question. What are we dealing with here? Is the Hat Man something we should be afraid of? Or is he just another shadow in the night, a collective nightmare that haunts our deepest, darkest corners of sleep? If you've experienced the Hat Man, I want to hear from you. Send in your stories, your encounters, and let's piece this together. Because whatever he is, the Hat Man isn't just some urban legend. He's something real, something that slips into our reality when we least expect it. And maybe when we need to be reminded that not all shadows are made from light.
Till next time, dreamers, keep dreaming and
Join us in discovering what may lie beyond the walls of sleep.